Let's jump right in, shall we? Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly fascinating political trajectory. Look, in Ugandan politics, every leader leaves something behind when their time in the spotlight eventually fades, right? Some leave behind physical infrastructure, like massive road networks. Others, well, they leave behind scandals or half-finished government projects with, mysteriously missing accountability reports. But when we look at the story of Anita Among, we see a totally different kind of legacy. She might actually leave something far more permanent behind. And that legacy, it's her words. Seriously, few politicians in modern Uganda have spoken with such sheer, absolute confidence and at such a dangerous speed as Anita Among. She didn't just give your standard political speeches, she delivered these punchy sound bites that literally defined entire political eras. But here's the catch. Words have a really long memory. And now, years later, those very same quotes are coming back, one by one, to act as witnesses against her. Okay, let's dive right into this early defining moment. It's May 2021, and she has just become deputy speaker. Now, normally you'd expect the standard political humility here, right? The usual, I am here to serve, or I humbly thank God for the people's trust. But instead, she gave us this quote. And what's really wild about this 20-year prophecy is just how unusually honest it was. Ugandans laughed immediately. Not because it was impossible, but because in this specific political landscape, you're really supposed to hide your ambition under development slogans. She just skipped the disguise entirely. It was like she already had the future downloaded as a PDF. But very quickly, people stopped laughing. Fate intervened. In March 2022, Speaker Jacob Olania tragically passed away, and suddenly that 10-year prophecy didn't sound like a joke anymore. Stepping up as the new speaker, Anita Among rapidly consolidated power. If you trace the events between 2022 and 2023, she evolved from a parliamentary leader into this omnipresent political force. Fundraisings, massive convoys, sweeping parliamentary influence, everywhere you looked, there she was. It was during this completely politically untouchable era that she delivered a highly respectable, standard condemnation of corruption. And let's be honest, that's practically a rite of passage in Uganda. Every politician eventually condemns corruption. But the supreme irony of power is that politicians usually deliver these grand, sweeping condemnations while standing squarely in its vicinity. Still, at this particular moment in time, she looked completely invincible, and her anti-corruption stance appeared absolutely unshakable. However, that pristine image was about to face its absolute first major public test when the Karamoja iron sheets scandal broke. We're talking about iron sheets specifically meant for vulnerable communities that reportedly ended up being distributed through projects linked to her very own district. Once her name surfaced in the scandal, it really threatened the untouchable political armor she had built up. The whole nation basically grabbed their popcorn and waited to see exactly how the powerful speaker would navigate this crisis. And her response? I have decided to buy 500 iron sheets and give them back. The entire country just blinked slowly at that one. It is a moment of sheer, almost comedic absurdity. Because honestly, only in Ugandan politics can a high-ranking official allegedly return government iron sheets like they're just overdue library books. It was a stunning, mind-boggling way to handle a scandal, just attempting to simply refund an alleged misappropriation. But incredibly, she moved past it. And by 2023, she entered what we can really only call her theological phase. She started aligning herself incredibly closely with Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who's often referred to as MK, and the PLU movement. And her speeches, they got shockingly biblical. Just think about this for a second. Praising President Museveni is standard political practice, sure, but introducing the Holy Trinity into succession politics? Wow. That requires a level of confidence that borders on the prophetic. I think even her most committed supporters had to briefly check their Bibles on that one. So the absolutely crucial question here is why do this? Why on earth would you introduce the Holy Trinity into earthly succession politics? Well, the answer is that she was investing heavily in political proximity. She funded birthday activities, threw her weight behind PLU events, and even named facilities after Muhoozi. Because in Uganda, proximity to power is treated like absolute ironclad insurance. You build these massive alliances to make yourself totally indispensable and completely protected. Until, of course, suddenly, you aren't. Which brings us right to 2024. The political pressure intensified, and this time it was global. The United Kingdom hit her with sanctions over the corruption allegations linked to that very same Karamoja iron sheet scandal. On top of that, reports started emerging about alleged property ownership in the UK. Make no mistake, this was a massive diplomatic crisis. It demanded a very strong, meticulously, legally sound defense. But instead, she gave us this gem. I don't even have a pussycat in the UK. Honestly, it is probably one of the greatest sentences in Ugandan political history. Faced with a fiercely serious international sanctions scandal, she masterfully pivoted straight to stand-up comedy. She denied the whole thing, not with some dry, boring legal document, but with a farm animal metaphor. And you know what? It worked beautifully to shift the narrative. Suddenly, the whole nation abandoned geopolitics instantly to focus entirely on this hypothetical cat. People were asking, was it symbolic? Was it metaphorical? Was the cat perhaps financially independent? Nobody knew, but it brilliantly illustrates her uncanny ability to manipulate public discourse. She took a deeply serious diplomatic issue and turned it into a viral national joke, effectively neutralizing the immediate domestic outrage. Now, while she was busy managing these external scandals, she was also fiercely managing internal rivalries. There was this deepening, quiet battle with Rebecca Kadaga going on. Among steadily consolidated her control over Parliament and NRM networks, which eventually led to this absolutely unforgettable line, "I will guard my seat jealously." Notice the phrasing there? She didn't say she would defend it or protect it. No, she spoke about the parliamentary chair as if it were a highly suspicious romantic partner that she had to fiercely, jealously guard against intruders. And she actually continued this bizarre romantic framing right into 2025, during the Norbert Mao and NRM-DP cooperation debates. Uganda expected formal, constitutional, policy-driven language, but instead she introduced what we can basically call the bedroom doctrine. The internet completely won that day. Because let's face it, the moment national governance starts sounding like marriage counseling, policy discussions just die. At this point, she sounded totally politically invincible, literally laying down the domestic rules of state power. But then, we hit May 2026. And I really want to slow down here, because this is where the entire narrative shifts abruptly. The arrival of a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, a vehicle reportedly worth billions of shillings, acted as a massive, unavoidable reality check. The devastating symbolism of this ultra-luxury vehicle crashing directly into the reality of a struggling economy was just impossible to ignore. The timing and the optics, absolutely politically fatal. Because of this, the entire country basically transformed into a giant decentralized anti-corruption committee. It was wild. TikTok detectives were meticulously analyzing the vehicle frame, WhatsApp economists were busy calculating the fuel usage, Facebook lawyers suddenly became certified customs experts overnight. The internet completely mobilized, and the scrutiny was intense, relentless, and everywhere all at once. And right in the middle of this came the most dangerous development of all. Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the very man she had literally glorified as God the Son just a few years prior, posted this incredibly carefully timed tweet. "I have been Muzee's son for 52 years, but I have never sat in a Rolls-Royce." Now, in Ugandan politics, direct attacks like this are incredibly rare. Power usually communicates through silence or maybe carefully orchestrated humiliation. This tweet, it was an absolute earthquake. It showed the entire country that the loyalty she had invested in had officially shifted. The political winds didn't just change direction at that point, they became a hurricane. Reports quickly emerged that she was summoned to State House for a high-stakes meeting with President Museveni amid this mounting pressure. And at the exact same time, Muhoozi reportedly endorsed a rival, Jacob Oboth, for Speaker. Suddenly, all those old quotes about guarding her seat jealously and coming back unopposed, yeah, they were aging terribly in real time. The seat itself was now surrounded. What followed was a rapid, overwhelming escalation of state machinery. First, it was CID investigations, then UPDF deployments, and finally, crime intelligence sweeps. This entire buildup created a profound sense of inevitable doom for someone who, literally just months prior, seemed utterly untouchable. The very apparatus of the state that she had once so confidently maneuvered alongside was now systematically closing in on her. The harsh reality fully hit when security agencies reportedly raided residences linked to her in Nakasero, Kololo, and Kigo. They were investigating alleged illicit wealth and money laundering. Uganda just watched in total disbelief. Think about it. This was the exact same woman fiercely defended by the president just years earlier. It proved a brutal, undeniable lesson. In this political ecosystem,
When power shifts, even the microphones you used to project your authority suddenly become dangerous. And as these raids unfolded, Uganda's internet stepped up to perform its sacred duty. They brought this entire explainer full circle by reposting this exact quote from her past. "Corruption is a vice that has eaten our society." Seeing this specific quote resurface while state agencies were actively searching her homes, it really signaled the end of the jokes. The pussycat defense was gone. The stand-up comedy had officially retired. Reality had completely taken over.
Anita Among's story is an absolute masterclass in the irony of power. She mastered loyalty politics right up until loyalty changed direction. She spoke grandly of corruption until corruption allegations completely surrounded her. Which leaves us with this final thought for you to reflect on. In a political landscape where power is clearly only rented and never truly owned, which quotes will eventually return to act as your witnesses? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it brought some clarity to this fascinating political saga.